Really, the only defense in a trust is your privacy. And if they had done this to trusts, it would have wiped out all the trusts. So they know better. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Stacks Over Tax. I'm Mark Lewis, and with me is Sterling Grace. Today, we're talking about the BOI bamboozle. How much of this, Sterling, have we been enduring for the last few months?
Way too much. So, Mark, why don't you tell them what the BOI even is?
The BOI. The BOI stands for the Beneficial Owner Information Requirements that came out, I don't know, a couple of years ago, like 2023 or whatever it was, under the CTA regulations. And they said that every company that is small to medium sized, basically just about every company, has to file this silly form with the grand mafiosos, the Gestapo goons at FinCEN, which is kind of the white collar crime federal agency with no oversight or anything. And, you know, we've had lots of room to still be free and not file these forms because they know that it took a while for people to get going and figure it out. And of course, it took FinCEN a while to get their website right. But now, in the last few months, as the deadline to file all of your forms that are coming to an end, there's been a lot of court cases recently that have been like, oh, well, you don't have to do it now. And then they wipe out those regulations. And then there's an appeal. And then now they're back on. And then there's appeal. And then they're back off. But the first state to do this was Alabama. And that was months ago. And honestly, you know, Sterling, we had talked about how great it was going to be to have like states like Wyoming and Nevada who don't report anything at all. Like they're really the only valuable states in the union to keep privacy for your company, that they would fight the fight. But what do you think happened with those states? They didn't do anything.
What do you think everyone is exactly freaking out about?
Well,
it's just a privacy issue. It's just comes back down to like Homeland Security, and they just want to know every single thing about every single thing.
You mean like what's the government freaking out about?
No, I mean, like, what's the average citizen freaking out about? Like, why do they care? Obviously, you file your taxes. When you file your taxes, they know who's in your business.
Well, the IRS definitely knows. But the IRS, I mean, in the world of federal agencies, is probably the most secure federal agency that we have. I mean, not that it's actually a federal agency, but a long other story. But it's like, you know, the IRS manages massive amounts of fraud. In fact, there's teams of people at all the upper echelon businesses where and part of what they do is file fraudulent tax forms to help, you know, cost the legal teams of their competitors so that they're all messed up and the IRS is after them. And so the IRS has to sort all this stuff out. So the IRS is all about security. In fact, myself as an enrolled agent, there's an entire periodical circular about how you have to keep everybody's data safe. And like there's criminal charges if you don't. I mean, security is everything. The issue isn't the IRS. The issue is these crazy goons in FinCEN who, I mean, we don't know what they're going to do. Their mandates say they're not going to release anything unless there's a court or like you're doing something illegal. Then of course they would. But like, oh well, we wouldn't release it otherwise. Like, I don't know who you guys are. You're not a tried and tested group of federal folks, and you certainly really don't have any oversight. So this isn't good. And what people are freaking out about, to answer your question, is what about my privacy? How do I know that they're going to, if I got into a civil lawsuit, that I'm going to be able to, you know, not have somebody be able to go to FinCEN and say, hey, we're going to need all that information about who's in that company, especially if you're in a state like Wyoming or Nevada, who we incorporate there because we know they're not going to report, or Georgia. There's another state where, man, you can't crack into any records and find out who's in those three states and those companies. So FinCEN all of a sudden becomes a weak link in a chain where, you know, privacy is a concern for a lot of people. So
just what happens if I just don't pay it, or if I just don't file it? Is it really that big a deal? No one's coming to like hunt me down, take me off to jail, right?
Well, right now, it's completely dead as far as we know. I mean, Trump came out a few days ago and said that Treasury is actually the thing that's going to step in and go, no, not this anymore. And we haven't actually seen the actual come down of that, but it's kind of dead. But before, the fines were pretty crazy. It's $500 per day that you don't file within 30 days of the beginning of your company or a change in your company. It's $500 a day up to $10,000. Now, for me, I was of a mind where I'm like, ain't nobody going to know who's in my C Corp. I don't care who you are. And I'm happy to write a $10,000 check just to keep my privacy. But the other side of it is, in the not so fine print, is $10,000 and jail time up to a year. I'm like, well, that's kind of gross. And I don't live in Alabama or Texas, who were the only states to fight this. And so do I really want to do that? So there was a lot of people going, especially people who are familiar with trusts, where, really the only defense in a trust is your privacy. And if they had done this to trusts, it would have wiped out all the trusts. So they know better. But in company side, we really don't. Privacy isn't that big of a deal. We're here to do business. We're here to make profits, or we're here to hold assets. And as a result, yes, I don't really like FinCEN having my information, but really, it's not going to be hard for somebody to track down if I've got contracts or if I'm doing business. That's not hard to find out who I am. So people, I think, had a big overreaction. When we started talking about this last year in 2023, and it's 2025 now, but even earlier. And I said, if you don't file or if you don't set up your company before 2024, then you don't have this cool 90-day grace period. And we incorporated so many people in December. And I think the state of Wyoming did like $15 million at the end of the month of December 2023 because everybody wanted to get in. So a lot of people have been panicked about this. And you've seen them.
That makes up a good question. Would it have mattered what state I incorporated in? No. Does it ever matter about what states you're incorporated? No.
Not for the
They're
BOI.
better states, right? There are some states that are just better states.
Yeah, for sure. So for the BOI, it doesn't matter if you're a single member anything, if you're a multi-member anything, if you're a C Corp, an S Corp, a partnership, or whatever. The only places where you don't really have to file the BOI, and again, we don't have to file it at all now, but in those days it was, if you were in the big business guys, you were a brokerage, you were a bank, you were basically a money launderer, the very people that this whole organization is supposed to stop. If you actually money launder, then you don't have to actually file this. So it's pretty crazy. Wait, what did you ask?